Hello, folks, and thank you for joining us. We will begin this session momentarily. But as we wait for folks to enter tonight's webinar, please note that this session is being recorded. A quick reminder that you may utilize the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your screen at any point during tonight's session to ask a question. We will have a live Q&A with our panelists after the presented material has finished this evening. And we also have staff on the back end working to answer questions offline. So again, throughout tonight's session, please feel free to utilize the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your screen, following the directions that are posted on the slide currently being presented. All right, it looks like we've got everyone that was in the waiting room or is joining us tonight currently inside tonight's webinar. So I would like to, again, welcome you all for joining us either tonight, this morning, or this afternoon, wherever you may be joining us for this International Parent-Family Orientation virtual session on tonight's topic, Safeguarding Your Students' Records. My name is Dan Perez. I am the Assistant Director for the Office of Parent and Family Programs. And I am so happy to be able to present a hybrid format for this year's International Parent-Family Orientation, not just working and meeting families virtually, but also in person as well. And we're very excited to have you all virtually joining us from wherever you may be tonight. And before I get started and introduce our panelists and go over the purpose of tonight's session, I would love to learn more about the audience that we have. So we do have a few polling questions. So please take a moment and answer the few polling questions we have so we can get a better understanding of who all is joining us. All right, folks, we'll just take another minute as the last couple people are answering tonight's poll. I almost feel like I should have had the Jeopardy music playing as you all are participating. All right, just the last couple answers here, and we'll wrap it up, and we can share tonight's results. Okay. So, thank you again for participating in our quick attendee poll. So, we've got a room full of parents of incoming students. Again, thank you so much for joining us and supporting your students' journey here at UC San Diego. All right, we've got almost half of tonight's participants in Asia, the majority in the United States, and some from Mexico and Canada. Thanks so much for spending time and making this a part of your schedule, no matter you being in a different time zone. Again, we really appreciate your participation. We've done a mix of those that are attended school previously in the U.S., so a handful have completed school either in the U.S. or at a different college and are transferring to UC San Diego. That's great. But the majority are going to be first-time students here in the United States. Great. And we'll see about half of you all that responded this weekend for our in-person schedule of events. Well, again, thank you so much for participating in that poll, and it's really great to get to know who we have with us in the room tonight. All right, before I introduce tonight's esteemed panel, I would just like to review the purpose of why we're all gathered here to talk about safeguarding your students' records. We're going to have great information explaining the importance of the privacy of student records and how that not only protects the student from unwanted fraud claims, scams, but also ensuring that their records are private, even when ensuring that they're the primary holders of their records and information. We'll recognize and discuss the issues of those financial scams among college students, particularly those scams that are targeting international students in that population. And we'll share resources and recommendations to, one, recognize those scams, avoid those, and overall, keep your students' records private and secure. So without further ado, I would love to start introducing our panel. So I'm just going to go around and call out one of our panelists, and please feel free to spend about 30 seconds to a minute introducing yourself. So the first panelist I'd like to introduce is Pegah Parsi, who is our campus privacy officer.
Greetings, everybody. I'm the Chief Privacy Officer here at UC San Diego, and I'll be talking to you all about how to protect yourself as you come to our wonderful campus. Thank you.
Great, thanks for joining us tonight, Pegah. Next, we have Pachia View, who is an Assistant Director with the Office of Student Financial Solutions.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm an Assistant Director with Student Financial Solutions, and our office, it's basically everything about your bill. So we're the office to reach out to if you have any questions about that.
Thanks, Pachia. All right, and we have Sergeant Patrick Dobbins from Campus Police joining us as well.
Hello, everybody. My name is Patrick Dobbins. I'm a sergeant with the UCSD Police Department. I'm currently in the Specialized Services Division, which covers the investigations, our detectives, as well as special events and community programs, which includes presentations such as this. And also we do safety and informative presentations with the students at their residences and other locations on campus to cover topics such as this and other safety issues that might arise or questions that they may have. Glad to join you.
Great, thanks so much, Sergeant Dobbins. And last but certainly not least is the Director of the International Students and Programs Office, Dolce Dorado.
Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. And first of all, congratulations to your students for their admission to our beautiful and prestigious university. And I'm the Director of the International Students and Programs Office. And what our office is primarily responsible for is, of course, the visa process, helping your students get authorization to work in the United States, and helping them with their travel and re-entry into the United States. But also, of course, we help with just student activities to help your students transition to the United States and to UC San Diego and help them be engaged in our community. So nice to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dulce. And thank you, all of you, for joining us and spending time with some of our international family members tonight. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to our first panelist, which would be Pegah.
Great, thank you very much. Again, I'm the Chief Privacy Officer here at UC San Diego. My name is Pegah Parsi. I wanted to talk to you all very briefly about how we talk about privacy here on our campus. On our campus, privacy is about having control over yourself, your body, your communications, your stuff and your space, as well as your personal data. So when we talk about privacy for us, we don't just mean confidentiality, but we do mean having the ability to exercise agency and autonomy over yourself. Now, the university does maintain various kinds of records about students, primarily educational records and health records. And we keep these to provide certain services to your students. These records are protected both by state and federal law. They are protected by what is called FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act at the federal level, and by various state laws here in California. I am here, my office is here to provide services to the community, advocate for the community, answer questions that you might have about how your data are protected and what some of our privacy practices are here on campus. Next slide, please. I apologize, there's so many words on this. It should have been one by one, but that's all right. So we have lots of different interactions with your student throughout a regular day that collect their information. So for example, our parking and transportation system, our Wi-Fi system, our learning management system, Canvas, your ID cards to swipe into or out of a building. When you go to see a nurse or a physician at student health, all of those are collecting little bits of information about each and every single one of us, including you and your students. Now, we as the university use that information to help your student succeed and to provide services that your student needs. But that same exact information can also be used for nefarious purposes by ill-intended individuals. So information should be protected, and UC San Diego does a very good job of protecting your information, but you should be aware and very cognizant of your data that exists elsewhere in the world, and make sure that you understand some of the risks that come along with that. One of the risks that come along with that are financial and identity scams that rely on having knowledge about you, right? Whether that is to gain your trust, make you think you're talking to somebody that you're not talking to, emotionally manipulating you, for example, instilling fear in you, or making you feel like you have to do something immediately or something catastrophic will happen. Those all can happen when you are either emotionally manipulated or very rich information about you is used to target you in particular. So we want everyone to be aware that many times scams do look like they come from legitimate sources, not just the university, but also your bank or many other places that you interact with. So always be cognizant of where you are entering your information. When you go to a website, for example, or if you receive an email that you're not sure where it came from, always take a moment to double check, maybe go to the source independently, go to the website independently, make a phone call independently to figure out whether it is legitimate or not. Very, very importantly, students are advised not to share any of their passwords, usernames, things like that with anyone, or to share information with any entity that they don't fully trust. Same for you. You have your usernames and passwords. Please don't share those. Our students are responsible for anything that happens with their credentials. So their logins and passwords, anything that happens to that, unless it's sort of accidentally compromised. Students are not allowed to ever share their credentials with anyone, including UC San Diego staff, including UC San Diego faculty members, including their parents. They are not allowed to share their information with anybody else. In fact, if they do share their passwords with anyone else, that might cause them trouble, and we'd have to resort to taking some disciplinary action in those cases. And of course, your credentials and login information should never be posted where anyone else can see them. Don't post them publicly. We've seen this before where a well-intentioned person wanted to get help in a forum and somebody offered to help them and they posted their information. so as to get help from somebody else. Please don't do that. Pick up the phone and call either our IT services, call my office, call if it rises to the level that you need to the police department, but never ever share your information or post it publicly. I want to hand this over. I know other people are going to touch on various parts of this, so I don't want to take up any more time, but please contact the Campus Privacy Office with any sort of questions or concerns that you have. I'm here to serve you and your students. Thank you and welcome to our community.
Thank you so much, Padya. Just a wealth of knowledge and recommendations and great information. Thank you. All right, I would like to now throw it over to Pachia.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about each person's responsibility as it relates to privacy and the student's record. So let's start off with the students. We can't stress this enough. Just like Pega said, do not share your online credentials, your login information, your password. Don't share that information with anyone. We also recommend that you only use UC San Diego approved forms of payments. We have a whole list of options that are available to all of our students and our parents on our website, sfs.ucsd.edu. So we recommend that you stick with those approved options and don't deviate from those options. Next, do not use a third-party vendor to make payments. Anybody that says, oh, pay me, then we'll turn around and pay the university. Again, stick with the approved forms of payments that UC San Diego recommends. And for our students, finally, do not disclose financial information to others. Our staff would never ask you for that information over the phone, via email. Do not share that private information with anybody else. Now, for our parents, just like Pega had mentioned, we recommend that you request to be an authorized payer by your student. By doing so, you get your own login and your own password, and you can go into Triton link and you can view your student's bill anytime you need to and review the transactions to make sure everything looks okay. Then, because you have that access, we also recommend that you maintain regular communication with your students. If you see something that doesn't look right, talk to your student. And the same, if your student doesn't understand something, then we recommend reaching out to us so that we can walk you through your bill and through every single transaction and help you understand. When you log in, please use your own login credentials. That's the same for the students. The students will use their login information, and then for you, you can use your own login information. And then again, we can't stress this enough. Do not share your credentials or use third-party vendors. Now, as a university, whenever we're contacted by a student or by a parent, we often ask to make sure that, number one, it's the student that we're talking to. And then if we're talking to a parent or a family member, we confirm whether or not that person is authorized on the student's account before we divulge any information about the student's bill. And then we go to great lengths to make sure that our technology is regularly updated to remain secure and protective. Next slide, please. Okay, so some recommendations and best practices. Again, to safeguard the student's record, please make sure to only use the accepted forms of payment when paying your student's bill. UC San Diego does not offer any type of discounts or reductions of tuition or other fees. So if someone is contacting you and saying, you know, pay us and it's a discounted rate, absolutely do not believe that. We have two portals, the student portal and the authorized payer portal. Those are the only two portals that you should use to pay the bill. Now, again, regarding best practices for securing credentials, don't ever share this information with anyone, including family members, and keep all your credentials in a safe and secure place. Now, regarding the example of the student who was scammed, we wanted to share one that happened just a few years ago. It was a student who shared their login credentials for our dining ordering app. Didn't think anything of it, very innocent. Think the student was just allowing another student to order something using their credentials. And then eventually over time, the student realized that they were seeing these charges pop up out of nowhere. And this happened over 6 months. And so unfortunately, the student lost quite a bit of money before they had realized it was happening. So we again recommend do not share your login information with anybody. And then secondly, when a student is scammed, it's not always a large amount. Sometimes it's small, tiny amounts, $5 here and there, $7 here and there. So it's hard to see that they're being scammed until they look at the big picture and then they realize, you know, like this student 6 months later, and it was almost thousands of dollars. So again, do not share any of this information. Now, when this student realized this, they did the right thing. They contacted UC San Diego Police, and that's exactly what you should do. Contact UC San Diego Police, and then reach out to our offices so that we can take a look at the account and we can assist. Reach out to ISPO, the International Students and Programs Office, and then contact our office, Student Financial Solutions. So when this happens, just know that you're not alone. We are here for our students and absolutely there to help them through the entire process. And with that, I think that's the end of my slide. So I'll go ahead and pass it on back to Dan.
Thanks so much, Pachia, for that great information. All right, I would like to ask Dolce and Sergeant Dobbins, who are going to talk about, unfortunately, scams and how students may fall victim and how to avoid them.
Hi, unfortunately, one of the most common things that we have to deal with in our investigations division is somebody who fell victim to a scam. And some of the main common techniques used is, as mentioned, is basically fear and lack of knowledge that we basically see in these. They kind of prey on the fact that you're worried, especially with international students, of losing your student visa or being deported. And a lot of these will come via either a phone call out of the blue or sometimes an email where they're claiming to be an official from a legitimate source. That could be from the university, as far as from Student Financial Services or even the police department. Things such as, I'm Sergeant Dobbins, I'll call you up. So I'm Sergeant Dobbins with the police, and there's a warrant out for your arrest. And we need to take care of that right away, or you're going to get arrested and deported. Send $500 worth of iTunes pay cards to this address, and we'll clear that warrant for you, that sort of thing. And a lot of international students don't realize that that's not a legitimate way crimes are handled here in the United States. Police will never ask you for payment directly to them to resolve a criminal situation. That's one of the first red flags when it comes to that. The other thing is they may use techniques such as familiarity or authenticity or time sensitivity, saying you got to take care of this today because tomorrow is not an option. And then they won't let you hang up the phone type of thing. They will rely on that fear that something's going to happen if you don't take care of this right now. Those are a couple of the big things. The other thing is with emails, things like that, they'll give you one of the common ones is they will reach out and say, hey, you know what, I'm unable to send this money or this package. So let me go ahead and send you a check for $1,000. The value is only $500, but go ahead and send the difference to me now. And then you could go ahead and keep the other 500 of that 1,000, but that'll get this product or this service taken care of. Well, they end up sending you a bad check on a false account. You withdraw and send them $500 from your legitimate account, and you're completely out that $500. And unfortunately, that's very rarely ever recoverable because we never can figure out who exactly that is. A lot of times they're from overseas, out of the country, things like that, when they hide their internet protocol addresses, so we really can't locate them. So these are some of the very common ones. The other is what's kind of mentioned, where people offer services to pay your tuition or your bills on campus at a discounted rate. And you got to do it and make your decision now, 1 hour, because this offer's over. That sort of pressure. And then finally, one of the other techniques is in emails or links, websites that are actually what's called phishing, where they're actual computer viruses designed to gather information such as username and passwords to legitimate websites such as your bank or your account portal with the university. And it'll look exactly like if you logged in yourself to it by clicking on that link, but it's actually a false site. So in those situations, we recommend if anybody calls you claiming to be from Bank of America or anything like that, and they're offering this program to kind of help you or any of these pressure techniques, tell them, okay, you know what? Let me go and call you back and we could discuss further. And then call them at the number you know is legitimate for Bank of America. That way there, you know, you're if it is a legitimate thing, you're actually talking to somebody who actually is offering whatever they're offering. If you want to report that you might be a victim of a scam or anything like that, you've lost some money, you fell victim to it, or your student has, please feel free to contact us directly. You could either call us at our non-emergency number, the 858-534-4357, or you can also go to our website, police.ucsd.edu, and find out how to report crime. And an officer will talk to you and help you out with what we can do, take a report and get as much information so we can investigate it. If you feel that you received something, but you caught it in time, you didn't send money, you're no loss, but you want to report that, hey, this scam is out there or somebody tried to scam me. A couple other things you could do is UCSD has an ID theft resource where you can just email them the information, forward them the email or the link on the website, you know, show them what that is at idtheft@ucsd.edu, and they will investigate that, remove it from the IT servers, things like that, and it kind of flags that scam. So that not only helps us and police and the university kind of curtail and stop the continuing of the scam being circulated, but it helps us know about it too, so that we might be able to do something down the road with it. A couple other resources on our website is an alerts where we will post common scams that are recent up there, so that just for your awareness, so that if you receive that email or that phone call, you have just read about it on the alerts section. The International Students and Programs Office also has a lot of information on their website, which is on the slide here, isafety.ucsd.edu. Primarily, the big thing is, if it's too good to be true, it probably is not true. That's kind of the biggest advice we could give you. And all of us that are on this panel today are here to help you if you have any question on that, or even question the authenticity of something. We're all here, just run it by us and we'll make sure that you and your students are not scammed out of anything for just lack of information and falling to some of these scam techniques.
Okay, I just wanted to add a couple of things to Sergeant Dobbins's presentation. So what I wanted to share is that this is actually unfortunately very common and happens to many international students, not only in the United States, but if you look at other locations around the world, if you just do a Google search on scams of international students, this is unfortunately something very common. I would also say, just based on my experience of working with students, it typically happens during two times during the year. One, when students are paying their fees, whether it's their tuition and fees, their housing fees. So it's usually during those key times. And then the second time is when it's tax season. So that's usually in April here in the United States, when individuals have to file their tax forms and pay for taxes. So that's when we see a rise in these number of attempts and scams. And the other thing that I wanted to add too is that it impacts a wide variety of students. So it's not just students from a certain country. It's not just undergraduate students and graduate students. It's not, based on gender. It's not even based on English language proficiency. These scams are very prevalent and have impacted students. And it can be, I think, as Pachia mentioned, it could be, for low amounts, but I think the most that I've ever seen someone scammed out of is a little over $100,000. So just, I guess, all of the good warnings that all of my colleagues have provided. And I think too, that what I've learned in speaking with students who've unfortunately experienced these is they do feel a little bit of shame and are sometimes afraid to let their parents know. So again, I think as long as you're continuing to have good conversations with your students, check in on them, reinforce all of the messaging that my colleagues have said about protecting their credentials, not sharing information. And as Sergeant Dobbins mentioned, if it's too good to be true, if the deal, it sounds too good to be true, just be careful and question whether or not it's really true. And my last point is on our website, isafety.ucsd.edu, there's a list of other scams that have taken place and that have targeted international students in the past. So you may want to take a look at that or have your students take a look at it as well so that they are aware and can protect themselves and enjoy their time here at our university. So that's all I would have to add.
Thank you so much, Dolce and Sergeant Dobbins. All right. Well, we have a few minutes left for questions and answers. And so if I can have the panelists come back on the screen, we can throw some of these out. We have a couple questions already from a few family members. So whoever would like to answer this one, just please feel free to unmute yourself. So a question from a family member is, what about personal documents like passports or any other personal information or identification cards? Is there a secure place a student may be able to keep them in their resident homeroom? That's a really good question. I don't think anything actually comes with resident hall rooms. I think that would be a recommendation to purchasing either a personal safe or lockbox. Typically is what students are suggested, not just international students, but all students, in order to keep personal documentation safe.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is, yeah, unfortunately, there's not built-in safes in the res halls or anything like that, which would be a perfect solution for it. Yeah, other than purchasing your own personal safe or anything, there are nearby banks around campus that you could go to and rent a safety deposit box that your students are more than welcome to work with those banks to rent those during their time here, because they don't need to carry a passport on them at all times. That's only really used for verification of their identity during signing of official documents for the most part, things like that. So they could grab it when they need it and then go back and put it into that safety deposit box, which only they would have access to. That'd probably be the most secure way. And it's generally very affordable at the banks for a small box to hold documents like that.
Awesome. Thanks for that addition, Sergeant Dobbins. Another question from a family member is, if my student does experience a scam with off-campus housing, can the university still support them?
From the police perspective of that, there's actually a couple parts on that as far as one is, if it occurred off campus, that's not our area for investigation or anything like that. So they'd have to report it to the agency that has jurisdiction and responsibility where they live. For example, just off of campus would be like San Diego police. If they're in a different area of San Diego, so whatever their local law enforcement to where they live is, that's where they would have to report that housing scam or issue with. And as far as other support from the university, there might be somebody else on the panel who might be able to be a little bit more expertise in that regard.
I think that what I would add is that if your student experiences any financial difficulty, I would first, of course, refer them to their Dean of Student Affairs at their college, because there are many resources on campus that may be able to help them, whether it's, temporary funding for perhaps some of the basic needs, or maybe additional resources. So we always advise our students to first start with their Dean of Student Affairs at their undergraduate college. And if it's a graduate student, to see the Dean of Student Affairs at the graduate education and postdoctoral affairs.
Great, thanks, Dolce. Another question from a family member is, if my student is unable to access their financial accounts, academic accounts due to a medical emergency, how can I as a family member go about accessing those for them, if possible?
Can you say that again, Dan? Sorry.
Yeah, of course. So if my student is unable to access their student financial account or their academic account due to a medical emergency, as a family member, how am I able to access them if possible?
Okay, so I'll take the first stab at that. If once your student comes to our university, well, any university, they are the record owner under federal law. So FERPA gives them all the rights to their records. If we want anyone else to access their information, they should give consent. So you can ask your student to allow us to do that, unless there's a major emergency, in which case please contact me or the registrar's office and we'll help you with that.
And I was just going to add the same thing, basically. That's why it's so important as a parent to have your student authorize you on their account in case of any emergency like this, so that you are aware of what's going on with their statements and with their bill. But like Pega said, if there is an emergency of some sort, definitely reach out to our office and we'll help out as much as we can.
And if I can also add, one other thing is, please encourage, especially for the new students, please encourage them to complete the emergency contact information in Triton Link. That's really what the university will use if a student encounters any medical emergency here in the United States. We'll look at the emergency contact that's attached to the student's record. And then that Dean of Students would then contact, or my office would contact the emergency contact indicated on the record. So if anything, please encourage your students to enter an emergency contact information. They can put the name and then the relationship, whether it's a parent, and then a phone number and email. And it's okay if it's overseas, because the calls will be made overseas as well.
That's a great point, Dulce. And I would also add to ensure that your student is adding the parent or family member email address in that portion that is not just their emergency contact, so that you all will be able to receive communication from the university directly. Like communications from our office will be sent to those emails registered. So ensure that not only do they fill out the emergency contact, but they also add either both parents or family members that would like to receive official communication from the university, their name and email in their Triton Link portal. All right, the last question, again, before we wrap up tonight's session, is simply, and I'm going to throw this one to Dulce, is will or have students received the same kind of orientation session like this one tonight?
Yes, so during new student international orientation, there are different workshops on safety in the United States. So we've had representatives from campus police, from Student Financial Solutions, and our colleagues in housing. So yes, there was a workshop. If your student was unable to attend, it is recorded and is posted on our website. But again, if there are any questions, either please look at eye safety. We have contact information for many of my colleagues on the call now. We're here to help you and your students.
Thank you so much, Dolce. And thank you again to all of you on the panel for spending time with us this evening. And again, speaking of those resources, Dulce, that you mentioned, here are just a few of the websites and resources spoken about throughout tonight's session. And don't worry, a copy of tonight's PowerPoint slide deck will be emailed out as alongside a recording of tonight's session to all folks that registered. So don't worry about taking a screenshot or trying to write all these down, because this will be emailed out to all folks that registered for tonight's session. Again, thank you so much for spending time out of your day, no matter where you are, joining us from around the globe for tonight's International Parent Family Orientation session. Just a reminder that we will be finishing up our 2022 International Parent Family Orientation with our in-person day this Sunday, September 18th. So for all those folks that registered, we're going to start at 8:30 and go all the way till 2 p.m. with this slate of events listed. It's going to be a great time, and we're really happy to have folks on campus for the first time since 2019 for International Parent, Family, and Orientation. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to support your students. Impending enrollment just about next week into UC San Diego to either finish their last 2 or complete their entire 4 years at a university, and we're happy to have them as UC San Diego Tritons. Please feel free to stay connected with us. If we did not get to a question you had tonight, or if a question comes up later, please feel free to email us at parents@ucsd.edu. You can also visit our website, where we've got links to all of the resources shared tonight, and you can get in touch with any of these amazing departments to help support your student. You can also stay in touch with us on our social media channels that are listed on the screen on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And that last one I specifically want to point out is our YouTube channel, where we will be putting a recording of tonight's session, a recording from last Tuesday's session, just 2 days ago. Our first International Parent Family Orientation setting is already up and it's online. And plus, all of the recordings of any sessions we do throughout the academic year will be posted on our YouTube channel. So there's a great video library already of amazing sessions presented by great panelists like the ones I've had tonight. And you may actually see some of them from way back in 2020 when we did a completely virtual International Parent Family Orientation in a similar session. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to the panelists for taking time to share the great information, resources, and recommendations. And thank you all. And we hope to see some of you this Sunday. And again, we wish you and your student the best as the fall quarter gets underway. Thank you again.